Imagine a weapon so savage it didn't just fell enemies, it shattered shields, cleaved horsebones, and inspired terror in even the bravest hearts. Forged in secret for a brief, brutal moment, then buried by history. Flames crackle wildly in the forge, casting flickering shadows over a massive double-bit axe head. Each blade glows faintly with runes of fury etched deep into the steel. Sparks fly as hammer meets metal in a relentless rhythm, shaping a weapon both beautiful and deadly. The scene shifts to a frozen riverbank littered with shattered shields and fragments of mail stained a dark copper-red, silent testimony to battles past. Against this stark backdrop, a lone Viking warrior hoists the spathe axe high. Moonlight glints off its wicked edge, promising unspeakable destruction. The sharp staccato of hammer strikes melds with the metallic tang of blood vaporizing on the roaring hearth. A low drumbeat pounds steadily, echoing the heartbeat of the warrior wielding the fearsome axe. Tonight we unearth the spathe axe, the weapon even Vikings abandoned as too cruel for the field of battle. Pre-dawn mist curls low over the longhouse courtyard, where makeshift weapons lie scattered on frosted ground. Bjorn the blacksmith, his face streaked with soot and sweat, hefts the hulking spathe axe from its leather-bound rack. His hands grip the worn haft tightly as he meets Ragnar, the shield maiden's steady gaze. She stands ready, shield raised, breath steaming in the icy air. With a grim determination, Bjorn swings the massive axe toward a thick oak training post. The blade bites deep, embedding halfway through the wood with a thunderous crack that reverberates like a war horn across the courtyard. Ragnar's eyes narrow with unease. The force behind the blow is more than wood should endure. Suddenly, a messenger staggers into the yard, breathless and urgent. The chieftain forbids its use. He gasps, "Horses crippled, men broken. This axe brings more terror than victory." Bjorn nods silently, his expression darkening. He sets the formidable weapon down beside the dying embers of the forge, the leather sheath settling with a soft thud. Above, the first light of dawn creeps across the sky as the distant bell tolls its solemn warning, sealing the spathe axe's exile from battle. The yard falls silent, except for the echo of that single bone-chilling crack. The weapon's brutal legacy, once feared and revered, is now consigned to shadow. In a sleek, sterile laboratory, ballistic gelatin torsos sit poised to absorb the next measured blow. High-speed cameras flash, capturing each moment of impact with razor precision. Forensic experts pore over data, blade sharpness, strike force, penetration, depth, all meticulously catalogued and analyzed. Here, weapons are tools of science, designed for predictability, efficiency, and repeatability. Every strike is calculated, every injury anticipated and controlled. Now, step back in time to Bjorn's forge, a world devoid of machines and measurements. Muscle flexes with raw power. Fire dances over glowing iron. The spathe axe, forged without ruler or gauge, embodies pure, unbridled force. There are no neat incisions here. A single swing doesn't just cut, it shatters ribs, splinters shields, and sends wood and bone flying in chaotic bursts. A slow-motion strike echoes where the lab test shows a clean slice through gelatin. The axe smashes through oak with terrifying randomness, pulverizing what lies beneath. No precise wound, no predictable effect, just devastation. Modern warriors demand control and precision. Their gear is regulated, their weapons standardized. Yet the Vikings wielded chaos incarnate, trusting instinct and raw strength. The spathe axe stood apart as the ultimate weapon of unrestrained violence, so volatile and fierce that even hardened warriors recoiled. This was not a tool to be mastered, but a force to be feared. The hum of lab machines fades into the heavy silence of the forge. The thunderous crack of wood breaking and bone fracturing fills the air. We demand precision. They wielded chaos. The Spartax was the ultimate expression of uncontrolled force, and even Vikings stepped back from its edge. The Spartax stands as a colossal, double-bladed behemoth, forged not merely to cut but to obliterate armor and crush bone. Crafted with rune-forged steel and balanced with masterful weight distribution, it delivered devastating force with every swing, capable of shattering shields, cleaving horse skulls, and breaking enemy ranks in an instant. Yet, this brutal marvel of engineering proved its own undoing. Archaeological excavations reveal a haunting trail. Shattered shield fragments scattered across battlefields, fractured horsebones bearing the mark of immense impact, and abandoned Spartax heads left behind by warriors who found the weapon more burden than boon. These tangible remnants hint at the fierce power and the controversy that surrounded this fearsome armament. Reenactments bring to life the axe's clash with Viking tactical realities. Despite its overwhelming destructive potential, the Spartax proved disastrous within the tightly woven shield wall formations. Its cumbersome size and unpredictable swing left its wielder exposed, unable to maintain formation or respond swiftly to counterattacks. The weapon's ferocity was unmatched, but so too was its impracticality. Cultural echoes linger in chieftains' decrees banning the Spartax, sagas that warn warriors against its reckless use, and rune-etched oaths sworn to abstain from wielding it irresponsibly. This weapon's legacy is as much about restraint as it is about power. Metallurgists analyze the axe's composition, uncovering the secrets of its rune-enchanted steel. Military archaeologists trace its footsteps through fractured relics. Combat reenactors test the legend firsthand, feeling its crushing weight and untamed fury. Join us as we split steel and shatter myths to understand why the Spartax's savage genius, its raw, bone-breaking force became a death sentence, banished from battle and memory alike. Amid roaring forge fires and echoing hammer strikes, hear the clash of metal and the pounding of shields, the snort of horses caught in the fury, and the solemn chanting of oaths reminding us of a weapon too wild for even Viking warriors to master. The Spartax's blade was forged from high-carbon steel, with a carbon content between 1.1 and 1.3%. This gave it exceptional hardness, capable of cleaving through armor and bone, but also made it brittle and prone to snapping under extreme stress. Embedded deeply in its blade were runic inscriptions invoking the gods Tyr and Thor. These carvings were not mere decoration. Vikings believed the runes bound divine fury and strength into the weapon itself. The axe was more than a tool, it was a sacred instrument, combining master craftsmanship with spiritual power. Under electron microscopes, the crystalline structure of the steel reveals layers of carbon and tiny slag inclusions, evidence of a laborious forging process. The glowing runes, caught in the flicker of forge fire, symbolize the terrifying potency the Vikings hoped to harness and the peril that such power entailed. The Spartax featured a striking double-bit design, with each blade sharpened at a 60-degree bevel. This geometry maximized lateral shearing force, allowing the wielder to cleave through shields and bones in sweeping arcs. However, the axe's heavy poke, crafted to increase momentum, created an unpredictable recoil upon impact. When swung, the weapon delivered devastating blows, but this momentum often threw the wielder off balance, making rapid follow-up attacks or defensive maneuvers difficult. Slow-motion reenactments highlight the wide arc and force of each strike. while 3D animations illustrate the weight distribution and blade angles. The axe demanded not only strength, but perfect timing and control, qualities difficult to sustain amid the chaos of shield wall combat. Excavations at Viking battle sites reveal shields scarred by deep crescent-shaped gashes matching the Sparth's blade profile, far more severe than typical Danax marks. Horse skull fragments, split cleanly in half, bear the unmistakable signature of a powerful strike, confirming the axe's use against cavalry. These physical remnants tell a story of destruction and terror wrought by the Sparth axe. Yet, many sites also uncover discarded or broken axe heads, suggesting warriors abandoned the weapon after disastrous engagements. The archaeological record paints a picture of a weapon both revered and reviled, feared for its power but cursed for its impracticality. Combat reenactors wield replicas of the Sparth axe against boiled bone blocks, tempered chainmail, and wooden horsetail dummies. These tests demonstrate the axe's ability to penetrate armor and fracture bone in a single devastating blow. However, the immense momentum of the weapon often causes the wielder to stagger or lose footing, confirming historical accounts of its unwieldiness. Slow-motion footage captures the splintering of targets and the physical toll on the actor handling the axe. Comparisons with Danaxes and longswords revealed the Sparth's unparalleled raw power, but also its tactical disadvantages, too heavy and uncontrollable for coordinated shield wall combat. Dr. Ingrid Sorensen explains the fine line the blacksmith walked between hardness and durability, calling the Sparth axe a masterpiece teetering on the edge of failure. Metallurgy tests show the weapon was prone to shaft fractures despite its deadly edge. Military archaeologist Professor Erik Helvorsen discusses the numerous discarded Sparth axe heads found at battle sites, evidence that Viking chieftains often banned the weapon after costly mistakes in battle. Together, their insights reveal a weapon that captured imaginations and shattered foes, yet proved too volatile for regular use on the battlefield. A detailed CGI sequence visualizes a Sparth axe strike crashing into a reconstructed Viking shield wall. Crescent-shaped blades tear through wood and hide, sending shattered shields and staggering warriors into chaos. The scene is punctuated by the thunderous crack of impact and the gasps of soldiers losing their footing. This brutal display highlights the axe's overwhelming destructive potential and the reason it became a liability. Its power was both its gift and its curse, leaving behind a legacy of awe and fear that sealed its fate in Viking history. Before dawn breaks, Bjorn the blacksmith toils alone by the roaring forge. His hammer rises and falls in steady rhythm, shaping the massive double-headed Sparth axe. Each strike is deliberate, infused with prayers and runic blessings invoking Tyr and Thor gods of war and justice. Bjorn's eyes burn with resolve as he swears an oath. This weapon will be wielded only once, in defense of his kin. The axe gleams fiercely in the firelight, its cruel edges promising destruction, yet whispering warnings of the burden it carries. The heat of the forge contrasts with the chill in Bjorn's heart as he contemplates the price of such savage power. Ragnar the shield maiden stands firm on the training ground, gripping the hefty Sparth axe with coiled strength. As wooden dummies charge forward, her swing arcs wide and true, cleaving shields into splinters with terrifying ease. Yet, the axe's brutal momentum jerks her off balance, sending her stumbling and narrowly regaining footing. Among watching warriors, whispers ripple. This weapon wields raw power, unmatched, but is dangerously untamed. Ragnar's steady breath mingles with the dust and flying shards. The axe promises devastation, but at a perilous cost to its wielder. Chaos erupts as the Sparth axe smashes through the gate of a rival settlement. Raiders wield the colossal weapon, battering down defenses while shields splinter and horses rear in panic. The thunderous blows bring terror to foes. But the wild recoil sends allies tumbling, fighting not only enemies but the weapon's own fury. Ragnar battles fiercely amidst the tumult, eyes sharp as comrades fall from missteps caused by the axe's unpredictable force. Though the gate falls, the raid's victory tastes bitter with loss, and doubts grow heavy in the smoke-filled air. Kara, the scout, limps back to camp, a crushed wrist wrapped tight by Gudrun's careful hands. Her face is etched with pain and grim determination. Around the fire, clan leaders huddle in tense debate, voices low yet urgent. Reports tell not only of enemy defeat, but of the Sparth axe's havoc among their own ranks. Kara's account weighs heavily. The axe's savage might is matched only by the danger it brings to friends. The clan's future now hinges on a painful decision. Can such power be contained, or must it be cast away? Jarl Sigrun rises with calm authority, her voice carrying through the longhouse. The Sparth axe is banned, forbidden under penalty of exile or death. No weapon that turns brothers against each other may stand among us, she declares. Respect for Bjorn's craftsmanship meets cold pragmatism in the council's decree. The remaining axes must be gathered and destroyed. Relief and sorrow mingle among the gathered. The brutal promise of the Sparth axe ends not by enemy steel but by the will of the Vikings themselves. Under a starless sky, Bjorn walks to the fjord's black waters, carrying the last Sparth axes. With a final prayer, he casts them into the depths. Each axe sinks slowly, runes glowing faintly before fading beneath the cold waves. The water swallows the weapon's terrible power, cleansing what cannot be trusted. Bjorn's silhouette stands still, grief etched on his face. His masterpiece, born of fire and fury, is lost to conscience, but with hope that peace will rise from its depths. The thunder of axe meeting wood shakes the air. The sickening snap of shield bosses fracturing echoes, sharp and true. Metallic scents of bent iron mingle with sweat and blood beneath the cold night sky. The furnace's fiery glow contrasts the icy fjord's darkness, anchoring the story in tangible reality. Close-ups capture trembling hands, sweat-damp brows, and splintered shields, a visceral portrait of a weapon both magnificent and merciless. At dawn, Bjorn stands alone at the fjord's edge, the water calm yet heavy with the weight of lost power. His gaze lingers on submerged runes, faintly glowing beneath the surface. Island witnesses to ambition, destruction, and restraint. The wind whispers a somber dirge as the scene fades to black. The Sparth axe's savage brilliance became its own undoing, a stark reminder of a time when the thin line between glory and ruin was carved in steel and blood. In the dim glow of Jarl Sigrun's hall, flickering torchlight dances across carved wooden panels, telling tales of honored battles and legendary weapons. Notably absent is any depiction of the Sparth axe, a silence that speaks volumes. Vikings believed weapons carried living spirits, and the Sparth's was a ravenous one, too wild to tame. It was more than metal. It was an abomination, a curse that devoured the vigor of its wielder and threatened the clan's very soul. The halls whisper warnings. This was a blade that consumed its own fervor, and had to be banished not just physically but spiritually. Axes were sacred family heirlooms, each with a name and a blessing, embodying ancestral strength and honor. This personhood linked warriors to their lineage, binding identity with weapon. The Sparth axe stood apart, feared as cursed. Its spirit was said to consume not only enemies but the very bearers who wielded it recklessly. It upset the delicate balance of respect and power that Viking culture revered. Rather than pride, it invoked dread. This was a weapon whose soul was too violent, threatening to undo the bonds it should have strengthened. The clan's decision to cast the Sparth axe into the fjord was a sacred ritual, binding its power to the feared Encon water spirits said to drag the reckless to watery graves. This was no mere disposal. It was a spiritual quarantine, a pact between human and supernatural realms to imprison destructive force beneath cold depths. The runes, carved on the axes, glowed faintly as they sank, sealing the weapon's fury away. The act safeguarded the living by surrendering the blade to the guardians of the dark waters. In Viking ethos, honor demanded measured force. To unleash unchecked violence was hubris's sin, risking the wielder's soul and the clan's standing. The Sparth axe's chaotic destruction violated this sacred balance, inviting cosmic retribution. Wielding such overwhelming power without restraint was a gamble with fate, undermining both individual dignity and communal harmony. The axe's fury was not valor but a breach of order, a reckless challenge to the gods and kin alike. Banning the Sparth axe affirmed the Viking commitment to communal safety over personal glory. No weapon, however fearsome, justified fracturing the bonds between warriors. The axe's wild swings disrupted shield walls and endangered comrades, shattering the unity essential for survival. The clan chose social cohesion over raw power, a potent reminder that true strength comes from solidarity, not from unbridled rage or individual might. The Sparth axe embodied the allure and peril of unrestrained violence. Vikings recognized that the desire to wield overwhelming force could consume the wielder as surely as the enemy. The axe was a symbol of humanity's dark side force, divorced from responsibility and ethics. Its rejection was a cultural admonition. Power without moral restraint destroys more than foes, it erodes trust, foments chaos, and fractures the very fabric of society. Dr. Signe Martinson, cultural psychologist, explains, the Sparth axe transcended mere weaponry. It was a living emblem of destructive potential. Vikings weren't just rejecting a tool, they were consciously banishing the dangerous human impulses it embodied. This reflects a sophisticated cultural understanding that violence must be contained, and communal checks are vital to prevent ruin. Her insight illuminates how the axe's fate is a testament to Viking values, balancing power with responsibility. The tale of the Sparth axe teaches that technology, untethered from ethics, wreaks devastation far beyond the battlefield. For Vikings, the blade was a lesson in humility, a caution that even the most formidable weapon demands careful stewardship. As modern societies forge new instruments of power, their ancient wisdom resonates. Mastery over force requires respect for consequences, lest we shatter not just enemies but the trust that binds us all. The submerged runes beneath dark waters and the flickering longhouse torchlight remind us true strength walks hand in hand with restraint. Bjorn's workshop is a graveyard of broken shafts and rune-inscribed metal shards scattered across the worn floor. Flickering candlelight casts, shifting shadows over half-finished hafts, and twisted iron remnants silent witnesses to the Sparth axe's violent downfall. Here lies the story of a weapon conceived in brilliance, but undone by its own excess. What seemed innovation in design, weight, balance, and metallurgy became a force that spiraled beyond control, turning Bjorn's masterpiece into a destructive liability. The Sparth axe was engineered with an extreme blade-to-haft ratio, designed to maximize lateral shearing force. Its massive double blades and weighted pole created immense momentum, delivering devastating blows. Yet this came at the cost of wieldability. As fatigue set in, maintaining control became nearly impossible. The weapon's heavy head pulled unpredictably during swings, forcing wielders into slow, cumbersome movements. What was intended as overwhelming force morphed into a tactical burden too unwieldy for the fluidity demanded in battle. Biomechanical analyses and battlefield skeletal remains reveal the axe's dark toll on warriors. Shoulder dislocations, fractured ribs, and repetitive wrist stress injuries were common among Sparth wielders. Each powerful strike produced violent recoil, destabilizing the user and risking grave injury. Reenactors grimace as their bodies strain against the axe's brutal force. The axe's design paradoxically became a threat to its own wielder, turning fearsome strength into a dangerous liability on the field. The Sparth's immense size and fragility demanded more than strong arms. Raiding parties needed multiple carriers to transport spare axes and repair materials, adding weight to already heavily burdened longships. This logistical complexity slowed Viking mobility. One of their greatest tactical advantages, strained clan resources. Debates among chieftains grew heated, with many concluding the axe's destructive promise was outweighed by its practical drawbacks, hastening its abandonment. The axe's banishment was sealed by communal decree. Jarl Sigrun's legal edict carried the force of law, backed by oaths sworn under threat of outlawry or exile. This social enforcement reflected Vikings' keen awareness that unchecked violence endangered more than lives. It threatened social cohesion. The public proclamation was a binding moment, marking the end of the Sparth's reign and reinforcing collective responsibility over individual might. Professor Marcus Felton highlights the metallurgical brilliance and peril of the Dr. Ingrid Falk explains how the Sparth's design clashed fatally with human physiology. Its brutal force required explosive energy beyond sustainable endurance, risking chronic injury. Unlike lighter weapons enabling fluid combat motion, the Sparth demanded short bursts of maximal exertion, often resulting in rapid fatigue and damage to muscles and joints. Anatomical overlays illustrate the immense strain on shoulders, wrists, and ribs, revealing why warriors soon abandoned the weapon. A 3D animated stress test dramatizes the Sparth's fatal flaw. Under extreme swings, the handle bends, the blade edges deform, and fractures propagate until shards peel away. Slow-motion fragments cascade downward, symbolizing the weapon's self-destruction. This visualization reveals how Bjorn's creation was undone by its own excessive power, brutal paradox embodied in metal and wood, ending its brief, violent saga at a cutting-edge weapons testing range. Anti-tank rounds slam into reactive armor, sending shards flying. Drones zip through simulated combat scenarios, while hypersonic missiles blaze trails across the sky. Despite this technological prowess, many advanced weapons find themselves banned or shelved, deemed too uncontrollable or devastating. The narration draws a clear parallel. The Sparth axe was the medieval railgun, a weapon of overwhelming power yet unmanageable on the battlefield. Like modern prototypes, it promised dominance but threatened those who wielded it. Throughout history, weapons crossing ethical boundaries, blinding lasers, cluster munitions, chemical agents have faced international bans to protect humanity. These modern prohibitions echo the Sparth axe's fate centuries earlier. Designed for destruction beyond tactical sense, it too was deemed too brutal for sustained use. The tension between innovation and humanitarian limits is timeless, showing that the Sparth was not an anomaly, but part of an enduring arms control narrative. Nuclear stockpiles spark debate over overkill, devastation far exceeding military necessity. The Sparth axe embodies an ancient form of this dilemma. Its runic oaths forbidding indiscriminate slaughter parallel today's treaties aiming to prevent unnecessary suffering. The weapon's raw, destructive potential conflicted with the tactical realities and moral codes of Viking society, illustrating the eternal struggle between overwhelming force and measured use. Modern military engineering boards rigorously assess weapons for usability, collateral damage, and ethical impact. Likewise, Viking jarls convened moots to debate the Sparth's use and ultimately ban it. This shared governance reflects an enduring principle. Technology must align with societal values and strategic practicality. The Sparth's ban was early arms controller, political and cultural decision, prioritizing communal well-being over raw power. The wounds inflicted by the Sparth axe weren't only physical. Modern PTSD from WWI shell shock echoes the mental scars Vikings bore from brutal combat, injuries, shattered bones, splintered limbs, relentless pain. Archaeological evidence and reenactor accounts reveal trauma as a timeless companion to war. The legacy of overpowering weapons includes haunting psychological wounds, underscoring the human cost behind technological advances. Colonel Emma Clark reflects on the recurring necessity for societies to restrain technologies that outpace doctrine. She cites the Sparth ban as a millennia-old example of responsible arms control. Defense analyst Dr. Simon Carver emphasizes that rejecting the Sparth axe was not mere superstition, but a profound acknowledgement that some force exceeds humanity's capacity to govern safely. The violent saga of the Sparth axe serves as a stark reminder. Unchecked pursuit of destructive power risks unraveling both individuals and communities. Its abandonment highlights the delicate balance between innovation and restraint, aggression and responsibility. This medieval story reverberates today, urging vigilance against technology divorced from ethical grounding. Beneath the dark waters concealing Bjorn's sunken axe lies a lasting warning. Power without control is a curse that harms wielder and kin alike. As modern societies advance weapon technologies, the lessons from this ancient creation unchecked force can fracture trust and destabilize societies. Viewers are invited to ponder the weighty responsibility entwined with innovation, embracing ethical stewardship as an eternal imperative. The camera slowly pans from shadowy fjord depths to a moonlit modern city, bridging past and present in the ongoing dance between power and prudence. The fjord awakens in the soft light of dawn, its silver waters gently rippling over the submerged remnants of the Sparth axe. The iron, dark and ancient, gleams faintly beneath the surface, silent witness to power both forged and forsaken. Bjorn, the blacksmith, his hair now streaked with grey, stands solemnly at the water's edge. In his hand, he holds a small token carved with runes, an emblem of apology and a cautionary tale. With deliberate care, he places it upon a driftwood stake, marking the place where his creation was laid to rest, a reminder etched in both wood and memory. In a modern workshop, an engineer closes a notebook filled with blueprints for a weapon now cancelled. The weight of history presses upon innovation, echoing the lessons of Bjorn's age-old forge. The narration gently reflects, true strength is not born from unchecked force, but from the wisdom to temper power with restraint. Even the mightiest blade can sever the ties that bind a people if wielded without care. The final invitation lingers. What inventions will you bring forth, and which will you choose to bury before they bury you? The camera lingers on a solitary rune-etched fragment of the Sparth axe blade, half submerged and catching the first lighter haunting emblem that some powers are too brutal to survive.